The deafening silence hung thick in the air as I stared at my son Aaron, his face contorted with barely concealed rage. My heart pounded, dreading the words I knew were coming. "Mom, get in here. Now!" Aaron barked, his tone leaving no room for argument. I followed him into the living room, my stomach twisting into knots at the sight of my daughter-in-law, Valerie, smirking with satisfaction. "What's going on?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. "Well, Marilyn," Valerie began, her voice dripping with disdain, "it seems your other son, Jake, is finally coming home with his pregnant wife." I felt a fleeting moment of joy at the thought of seeing Jake again, but Valerie's malicious smile quickly extinguished that spark. "So, Marilyn," she continued, "it's time for you to move out. We need the space." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to show any weakness. Years of hardship had forged an iron resilience within me. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I quietly agreed, already formulating my next move. As Valerie gloated, I turned and walked away, my mind racing back to the day my world had first come crashing down. It was a sunny afternoon when the doorbell rang, and I answered to find two solemn-faced police officers on my doorstep. Their words still echoed in my mind. "There's been an accident, ma'am. Your husband, Edward." In that moment, my life as a single mother began. Edward's dream of starting a family auto repair shop had been our driving force, but without him, it seemed impossibly out of reach. Still, I refused to let his memory fade. I poured every ounce of my being into raising our sons, Aaron and Jake, while keeping Edward's dream alive. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to give them the life Edward had envisioned. Now, decades later, it seemed that all my sacrifices had been for naught. Aaron and Valerie had wormed their way into my home, leeching off my generosity and goodwill, and now they sought to cast me aside like yesterday's trash. But they didn't know the true extent of my resolve. Edward's legacy would not be so easily extinguished. As I lay in bed that night, memories from the past came flooding back, unbidden. Edward's face swam before my eyes, his warm smile and gentle eyes a stark contrast to the harsh realities I now faced. It had been years since the accident, but the pain was still raw, like an open wound that refused to heal. I remembered the long, sleepless nights spent crying myself to exhaustion, wondering how I would ever make it on my own. But Edward's dream had been my guiding light, the beacon that kept me going even when the darkness felt suffocating. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I poured myself into raising our sons and building the auto repair shop he had envisioned. Aaron had been a sullen child, quick to anger and slow to show affection. Even then, I had sensed a darkness within him, a selfishness that I feared would only grow with time. Jake, on the other hand, had been my sunshine, a bright and inquisitive boy who shared his father's passion for mechanics. As the years passed, my fears about Aaron were realized. He grew more distant, resentful of the sacrifices I had made to keep our family afloat. Valerie's arrival only fueled the fire, her manipulative ways twisting Aaron's thoughts and clouding his judgment. "Why do we have to live in this dump?" Aaron had snarled one day, his eyes narrowed with disdain as he surveyed the modest home I had worked so hard to maintain. "This was your father's dream," I had tried to explain, but the words fell on deaf ears. Valerie had simply scoffed, her painted lips curled into a sneer. "Well, your father's not here anymore, is he? It's time to move on." Their cruelty cut deep, but I refused to let them see the pain they inflicted. I had endured too much to be broken by their petty insults. As the years wore on, their behavior only grew more erratic and entitled. They expected me to cater to their every whim, treating me like a servant in my own home. And through it all, I remained steadfast, clinging to the hope that one day they would see the error of their ways. But that day never came. Instead, they turned their venom on young Kyle, my grandson, and the one ray of light in my increasingly bleak existence. They resented his natural talent for mechanics, a gift he had inherited from his grandfather, and they sought to crush his spirit at every turn. I remember the day I found Kyle huddled in the garage, his small hands trembling as he tinkered with an old engine. His face had been streaked with tears, but his eyes had shone with a determination far beyond his years. "I want to be just like Grandpa," he had whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of the wrench in his hand. In that moment, I knew that I had to protect him, no matter the cost. Edward's legacy would live on through Kyle, and I would ensure that Aaron and Valerie's darkness never extinguished that flickering flame. The years ticked by, and Aaron and Valerie's grip on my life grew ever tighter. At first, they had made promises of contributing to the household expenses, of pulling their weight and helping to keep Edward's dream alive. But those promises quickly turned to dust, swept away by their insatiable greed and sense of entitlement. "We're family," Aaron had sneered when I dared to broach the subject of their financial responsibilities. "You owe us." Valerie had simply smirked, her beady eyes glinting with malice. "Besides, you'd never turn us out on the street, would you? Not with little Kyle to think about." And so they had dug their claws in deeper, leeching off my hard-earned money and treating me like a servant in my own home. I became the de facto caretaker for Kyle, responsible for his every need while his own parents neglected him in favor of their selfish pursuits. "Grandma, why doesn't Mommy ever play with me?" Kyle had asked one day, his big eyes filled with a sadness no child should ever know. My heart had ached for him, but I knew that any confrontation with Aaron and Valerie would only make matters worse. Instead, I had pulled him close, whispering reassurances and promising that everything would be all right. But deep down, I harbored growing suspicions about Valerie's true nature. There was a calculating gleam in her eyes, a hunger that could never be sated. I feared that she saw Kyle as a pawn in her twisted game, a tool to be used and discarded at her whim. "He's such a sweet boy," she would coo, her false affection making my skin crawl. "It would be a shame if anything were to happen to him." The veiled threats hung heavy in the air, and I knew that I had to tread carefully. Aaron was under Valerie's spell, blinded by her manipulations and unable to see the monster she truly was. So I bided my time, playing the dutiful matriarch while secretly plotting my next move. I would not let them destroy everything Edward had worked for, everything he had sacrificed to build a better life for our family. One evening, as I was tidying up the living room, I noticed a loose floorboard near the fireplace. Curiosity piqued, I pried it up, and my heart skipped a beat at the sight of a yellowed envelope tucked away beneath. With trembling hands, I opened it, my eyes scanning the familiar handwriting that adorned the pages within. It was a letter from Edward, written in the final days before his untimely death. "My dearest Marilyn," it began, "if you're reading this, then I fear the worst has come to pass." As I read on, the true depth of Edward's foresight became clear. He had sensed the darkness brewing within Aaron, the greed that threatened to tear our family apart, and in his infinite wisdom, he had made provisions to ensure that his legacy would be carried on by the son who shared his passion and integrity. "The business, the dream we built together, must be passed on to Jake," the letter stated, Edward's words echoing across the decades like a clarion call. Tears streamed down my face as I clutched the letter to my chest, a newfound determination surging within me. Edward had seen the truth, had known the path our family would take, and he had left me the means to ensure that his vision would not be corrupted by Aaron and Valerie's selfish desires. From that moment on, I knew that I could no longer remain passive. The time had come to fight for Edward's legacy, to protect our family's future from those who sought to destroy it. And with the letter as my guide, I would ensure that the sacrifices we had made would not be in vain. Armed with Edward's letter, I steeled my resolve to confront Aaron and Valerie about the future of the family business. I knew they would not relinquish control easily, but I was determined to honor my late husband's wishes. One evening, after Kyle had gone to bed, I gathered them in the living room, the crumpled letter clutched tightly in my hand. "We need to talk about the shop," I said, my voice trembling slightly, despite my best efforts to appear calm. Aaron scoffed, his eyes narrowing with disdain. "What's there to talk about? It's ours, plain and simple." Valerie nodded, her painted lips curling into a smug smile. "Yeah, Marilyn. After all, we've been the ones taking care of you all these years. It's the least you can do to repay us." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. "That's not true, and you know it. This shop was Edward's dream, and he left clear instructions that it should go to Jake." Brandishing the letter, I began to read aloud, my voice growing stronger with each word. "The business, the dream we built together, must be passed on to Jake." Aaron's face contorted with rage, and he lurched forward, snatching the letter from my hands. "This means nothing," he shouted, crumpling the pages in his fist. "Jake's off living his own life, while we've been here, stuck in this dump, catering to your every whim." Valerie placed a placating hand on his arm, her eyes glinting with cunning. Now, dear, let's not get too worked up. I'm sure we can come to some sort of arrangement." She turned to me, her saccharine smile sending chills down my spine. "After all, we wouldn't want anything to happen to dear little Kyle, would we?" The veiled threat hung in the air, and I felt my heart sink. They were willing to stoop to any depths, even using my own grandson as leverage against me. But I refused to back down, not when so much was at stake. "You wouldn't dare," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. Aaron sneered, his eyes cold and calculating. "Try us, old woman. We're not going to let you take away what's rightfully ours." In that moment, I realized the true depths of their depravity. They saw Kyle as nothing more than a pawn, a means to an end. And if I didn't tread carefully, they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. So, with a heavy heart, I made the decision to cede partial control of the business to them, at least for the time being. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I knew that it was the only way to keep Kyle safe and buy myself some time. "Fine," I said, my voice hollow and defeated. "You can have a share of the business, but only until Jake returns. Then we'll sort out the rest." Aaron's smirk was triumphant, but Valerie's eyes narrowed with suspicion. She knew that I was up to something, but for now, she seemed content to let me believe I had won a small victory. As they left the room, their laughter echoing like a cruel taunt, I felt a deep sense of shame settle over me. I had compromised Edward's wishes, all in the name of protecting Kyle from their wrath. But deep down, I knew that this was only a temporary setback. I would bide my time, gather my strength, and when the moment was right, I would strike back with everything I had. Aaron and Valerie had made a grave mistake in underestimating me, and they would soon learn the true depths of a mother's love and determination. In the days that followed, I watched Kyle with a heavy heart, keenly aware of the emotional turmoil he was enduring. His once vibrant spirit seemed to dim, his movements robotic and detached as he went about his daily routine. "Kyle, honey, come help Grandma in the garden," I would call out, desperate to coax a smile from his solemn face. He would dutifully oblige, his small hands meticulously tending to the flower beds. But his eyes remained distant, haunted by demons that no child should ever have to face. It was only when he slipped away to the garage, surrounded by the tools and machinery that had once been his grandfather's domain, that I glimpsed the spark of life still flickering within him. His fingers would dance across the worn metal, coaxing life from engines long since abandoned, and for a brief moment, the weight of the world would lift from his shoulders. "You have such a gift, my darling," I would whisper, watching in awe as he worked with a skill far beyond his years. He would glance up at me, his eyes shining with a fleeting joy before the shadows crept back in, stealing away the light I so desperately clung to. Valerie, of course, saw none of this. Her only concern was maintaining the illusion of a perfect family, a facade to hide the cracks that were rapidly spreading beneath the surface. She would parade Kyle around like a prized possession, doting on him in front of others while neglecting his most basic needs behind closed doors. "Isn't he just the most precious thing?" she would gush, her false affection making my stomach churn. And all the while Aaron would look on with indifference, his only interest in how Kyle's existence could benefit him. "The kid's a liability," he muttered one evening, his words slurring from one too many drinks. "We should have gotten rid of him when we had the chance." Valerie had simply laughed, her cruel amusement cutting me to the core. "Don't be silly, dear. He's our ticket to the good life, remember?" I had bitten my tongue, swallowing the bitter taste of bile that rose in my throat. They saw Kyle as nothing more than a tool, a means to an end in their twisted quest for power and control. But I knew better. I saw the pain etched into every line of his young face, the scars left by years of neglect and emotional abuse. And I vowed, in that moment, that I would do whatever it took to protect him, to nurture the spark of Edward's spirit that still burned bright within him. As the days turned to weeks, Valerie's pressure on Kyle only intensified. She would berate him for the slightest misstep, her harsh words cutting deeper than any physical wound. "Can't you do anything right?" she would snarl, her eyes blazing with contempt. And through it all, Kyle would remain stoic, his jaw clenched tight as he weathered the storm of her fury. But I saw the toll it was taking, the way his shoulders sagged a little more each day, the light in his eyes growing dimmer and dimmer. It was then that I knew I could no longer stand idly by. The time had come to take a stand, to put an end to Aaron and Valerie's reign of terror once and for all. I would bide my time, gather my strength, and when the moment was right, I would strike with everything I had. Edward's legacy, our family's future, depended on it, and I would not let them destroy everything we had fought so hard to build. The air was thick with tension as I descended the stairs, drawn by the sound of raised voices emanating from the living room. As I rounded the corner, the sight that greeted me sent a chill down my spine. There stood Kyle, now a grown man, his face flushed with righteous anger as he glared at Aaron and Valerie. In his hand was the crumpled letter from Edward, the very same pages I had fought so hard to protect all those years ago. "You two have gone too far," Kyle spat, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Grandma doesn't deserve this. None of us do." Aaron sneered, his lips curling into a cruel sneer. "And what exactly are you going to do about it, boy? This is our house, our business. You're nothing but a useless freeloader." Valerie nodded in agreement, her eyes glinting with malice. "That's right. We've been the ones keeping this family afloat while your precious grandmother squandered our money on her sentimental nonsense." Kyle's fists clenched at his sides, the muscles in his jaw twitching as he fought to maintain his composure. "That's not true, and you know it. Grandpa left this business to Uncle Jake, not you two leeches." He brandished the letter, thrusting it towards them with a trembling hand. "This proves it. You've been lying and manipulating us from the start, all to get your greedy hands on what was never yours to begin with." Aaron's face contorted with rage, and he lunged forward, snatching the letter from Kyle's grasp. "You think this worthless piece of paper means anything?" he snarled, tearing it to shreds before our eyes. Valerie cackled, her laughter grating on my ears like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, Kyle, you poor deluded boy. Your grandfather's wishes mean nothing to us. We're the ones in control now, and if you know what's good for you, you'll stay out of our way." But Kyle stood his ground, his eyes blazing with determination. "Not anymore," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "I won't let you two snakes poison this family any longer." Aaron scoffed, his lips twisting into a sneer. "And what are you going to do? Call the police? We're family, you idiot. They'll never believe your lies over ours." It was then that I knew I had to step in, to lend my support to the grandson I had fought so hard to protect. Summoning every ounce of courage I possessed, I stepped forward, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "He's not lying," I declared, my gaze never wavering from Aaron and Valerie's stunned faces. "I've kept the truth hidden for far too long, but no more. Edward's legacy belongs to Jake, and I won't let you two vultures pick it apart any longer." Kyle's eyes widened with surprise, but there was a glimmer of hope in their depths, a silent gratitude that steeled my resolve even further. Valerie's face twisted into an ugly snarl, her lips peeling back to reveal yellowed teeth. "You ungrateful old hag," she hissed, taking a menacing step forward. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" But before she could advance any further, Kyle stepped between us, his broad shoulders forming a protective barrier. "That's enough," he growled, his voice laced with a warning. "You two have tormented this family for far too long. It's time for you to leave, and if you don't go willingly, I'll make sure the authorities get involved." Aaron's eyes narrowed, his jaw working furiously as he weighed his options. Finally, he seemed to deflate, his bravado crumbling in the face of Kyle's unwavering defiance. "Fine," he spat, grabbing Valerie's arm and dragging her towards the door. "But don't think this is over. We'll be back, and when we do, you'll regret the day you ever crossed us." With that final, ominous threat hanging in the air, they were gone, leaving Kyle and me to survey the wreckage of our once happy home. In the days that followed Aaron and Valerie's explosive departure, a sense of uneasy calm settled over the house. Kyle wasted no time in officially taking the reins of the family business, his skilled hands breathing new life into the worn tools and machinery that had once been his grandfather's domain. "This is how it was always meant to be," he murmured one evening as we surveyed the freshly reorganized garage, a proud smile tugging at his lips. I couldn't help but share in his joy, the weight of decades of struggle finally lifting from my shoulders. Edward's dream was safe, his legacy secure in the capable hands of the grandson he had always seen so much potential in. But our moment of triumph was short-lived, as Aaron and Valerie's threats soon became a harsh reality. The phone calls began almost immediately, a constant barrage of vile insults and empty promises of retribution. "You'll pay for this, you meddling old bat," Valerie's shrill voice would screech through the receiver, her words laced with venom. Aaron, too, would chime in with his own brand of vitriol, his threats growing increasingly unhinged with each passing day. "We're coming for you, Mom," he snarled during one particularly chilling call. "And when we do, you'll wish you'd never crossed us." Kyle, bless his brave heart, remained steadfast in the face of their intimidation tactics, his resolve only strengthening with each new attack. "They're all bark and no bite," he assured me, his calloused hand giving mine a gentle squeeze. "We've got the law on our side now." True to his word, Kyle wasted no time in seeking legal counsel, determined to protect our family from Aaron and Valerie's wrath once and for all. With the help of a skilled attorney and the support of our tight-knit community, we built an ironclad case against the pair, documenting years of emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and outright criminal behavior. The court proceedings were grueling, with Aaron and Valerie pulling out every underhanded trick in the book to try and discredit us. But in the end, the overwhelming weight of evidence proved too much for even their silver tongues to overcome. As the judge read out the verdict, guilty on all counts, a collective sigh of relief rippled through the courtroom. Aaron and Valerie were led away in handcuffs, their faces twisted into masks of stunned disbelief, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. In the aftermath of their downfall, Kyle threw himself into rebuilding the family business, his boundless energy and passion a testament to the depths of Edward's enduring influence. Day by day, the shop began to take shape, each freshly painted wall and gleaming tool a symbol of our hard-won victory. "I want this to be a place Grandpa would be proud of," Kyle confided in me one evening as we surveyed the nearly completed space. A legacy built on hard work, integrity, and a love for the craft. His words filled me with a profound sense of pride, a recognition that despite all the darkness we had endured, the true essence of our family had prevailed. Edward's spirit lived on, not just in the legacy of the business, but in the unwavering determination that had carried us through even the darkest of times. As the sun set on that momentous day, I found myself lost in quiet reflection, marveling at the strength that had been forged from the fires of our hardship. We had faced down the demons of greed and manipulation, emerging battered but unbroken, our bond as a family stronger than ever before. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united by the unbreakable ties of love, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to honor the dreams that had set us on this path so many years ago. Years passed in a blur of hard work and quiet contentment, the shadows of Aaron and Valerie's treachery fading into distant memory. Kyle devoted himself to the family business with a passion that would have made Edward proud, his skilled hands coaxing life from even the most stubborn of engines. And then, one crisp autumn day, a new chapter began to unfold. The joyous arrival of Kyle's first child, a beautiful baby girl with eyes that sparkled with the same inquisitive spirit that had defined her grandfather all those years ago. As I cradled the precious bundle in my arms, my heart swelled with a love so pure, so profound, that it threatened to burst forth from my very being. This tiny life, this incredible gift, was living proof that our family's legacy would endure, that the sacrifices of the past had not been in vain. "Hey there, little one," Kyle murmured, his voice thick with emotion as he gazed down at his daughter with unbridled adoration. "I'm your daddy, and I promise I'm going to give you the world." In that moment, I was transported back in time, my mind's eye conjuring up the image of a younger Kyle, his small hands tinkering away in the garage, his eyes alight with the same determination that now shone so brightly in his own child's face. It was a poignant reminder of the cyclical nature of life, of how the bonds forged between generations can transcend even the darkest of adversities. Edward's spirit lived on, not just in the successful business that bore his name, but in the unwavering love and commitment that bound our family together. As the years rolled by, I found myself cherishing these quiet moments more and more, basking in the simple joys of watching Kyle's daughter grow and thrive under the watchful guidance of her doting parents. They were a testament to the power of resilience, of pushing through the darkness and emerging into the warm embrace of a brighter tomorrow. One evening, as the setting sun cast a warm glow over the now bustling family garage, Kyle pulled me aside, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and determination. "Grandma," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I want you to know that everything we've built here, all of this success, it's because of you. Your strength, your unwavering love for our family, it's what kept us going through the darkest of times." I opened my mouth to protest, but he gently silenced me with a shake of his head. "No, let me finish. You sacrificed so much to ensure that Grandpa's dream lived on, and I want you to know that it hasn't been in vain. This business, our family, it's all a testament to the legacy you fought so hard to protect." His gaze shifted, sweeping over the organized chaos of the garage, the gleaming tools and half-assembled engines, a vibrant tapestry of hard work and passion. "I want to build on that legacy, to take what Grandpa started and turn it into something even greater. A place where people can come and learn the craft, where we can pass on the values of integrity, hard work, and love for the art of mechanics." As he spoke, I felt a swell of pride unlike anything I had ever experienced, a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought us to this moment. The road had been long and fraught with obstacles, but through it all, the unbreakable bonds of family had sustained us, guiding us towards this moment of triumph and renewal. With tears glistening in my eyes, I reached out and took Kyle's calloused hand in mine, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Your grandfather would be so proud of you, my darling," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. "And so am I. You've taken his dream and made it into something truly extraordinary, and I know that no matter what challenges lie ahead, our family's legacy is in the best of hands."